I decided to find out what is the fastest and slowest way to transport in Minecraft. This is a new rubric, Minecraft Destroyer. I will break down the game as a constructor to explain how it works. Having appeared in the world, the first available means of transportation is walking, the speed of which is 4.3 meters per second if the basis is to take a block equal to 1 meter. The same speed if you put on the Depth Strider 3 enchanted boots and go underwater. Running is 5.6 meters per second. Immediately life hack, if you run sideways, i.e. press W and D, then the speed will already be 5.7 meters per second. It will be a little faster if you ride a pig with acceleration, and a potion for speed 2 will be 5.8 meters per second. Riding a strider with a bench acceleration of 6.9 meters per second. It will be even faster running with a jump. The speed will be 7.1 meters per second. The speed of a donkey and a mule is the same, 7.3 meters per second, but running with a jump at a speed of 2 will be 7.6 meters per second. The maximum speed of the boat on the water is 8 meters per second. With the same speed, the trolley travels along the powered rail. It is surprising that running sideways with a speed of 2 will be faster at 8.018 meters per second, but there is a nuance in satiety. Running in boots at soul speed 3 on soul sand will be 9.064 meters per second. The same speed if you swim with the Depth Strider 3 enchantment and soul speed 3 on soul soil. Running with a jump on the ice will be 9.2 meters per second, and if we replace it with blue ice, the speed will be 9.3 meters per second, which is not a small speed. Let's swim further. The maximum speed when swimming with the dolphin grace effect will be 9.8 meters per second, and if sideways, it will be 10 meters per second. A horse with a maximum speed of 14.512 meters per second, but the chance that you will be able to find such a horse is extremely small. Running with a jump on ice with a hatch, the speed is 15.5 meters per second, and if replaced with blue ice, then 16.4 meters per second. I gain this speed due to the fact that the distance from the floor to the hatch is equal to hitboxes, and due to the jump, a push is given, but immediately from the hatch, I land on the ice and spend a minimum amount of time on the flight. It is quite interesting to move on a trolley along circular rails at 15.8 meters per second, but there is a fully automatic movement mechanism in the trolley called a piston bolt, the speed of which is 20 meters per second. Teleporting with Ender Pearl is almost 22 meters per second. Carts through 2 blocks when using autoclicker, almost 29 meters per second. Elytra at an angle of 0 degrees, the maximum speed is 30.3 meters per second. And if you use fireworks continuously, the speed will be approximately 33.5 meters per second. The maximum speed of the boat on the ice is 40 meters per second. Swimming in Depth Strider 3 enchanted boots with the dolphin grace effect, the speed will be 63.7 meters per second, and if sideways, the speed will be 65 meters per second. But it will be easier to drive a boat on blue ice at a speed of 70 meters per second. Walking underwater in Depth Strider 3 and Soul Soil 3 enchanted boots with the dolphin grace effect is 79.1 meters per second standing and 80.7 meters per second sideways. If you swim in such conditions, then the speed will be 102.875 meters per second, and sideways will already be 104.975 meters per second. And if you add the speed to effect, then the maximum speed will be 146.965 meters per second. Under the same conditions, on the 20W11A snapshot, YouTuber Minecraft Ilmango was able to accelerate to 800 meters per second, since there were no restrictions on this snapshot as it is now, so this information has lost its relevance. There is a rather controversial way of transporting Elytra and Trident on Riptide 3 in the rain. The speed varies from 220 to more than 400 meters per second, because it depends on the speed of data processing, the speed of loading chunks, and it is not always raining. Another spiral variant of movement is an Elytra launcher with 1,000 boats. The movement speed is approximately 909.090 meters per second. Due to this acceleration, I fly 1,000 blocks in 1.1 seconds, but there is a nuance that the speed drops quickly, so you need to make a new Elytra launcher about every 4,000 blocks, but with 1,000 boats near them, it lags too much. Let's move on to mega mechanisms. The first one is called Faster Than Light by YouTuber XCOM6000 and a team of SciCraft server players. This mechanism teleports 88,065 blocks in 28.1 seconds, and the speed of such transportation is 3,134 meters per second. Due to the simultaneously detonated 1040 TNT, the Ender Pearl flies to such a distance, but you need to load the chunks over the entire distance while the pearl is flying, because in unloaded chunks the pearl will simply hang. If this mechanism is launched in a lake, then this distance will be 8 times greater. Since 1 block in a lake equals 8 blocks in the ordinary world, the distance will already be 704,000 blocks, or almost 25,000 meters per second. Not taking into account the time for teleporting between worlds, because it depends on the power of the computer and the data processing speed of Minecraft itself. It sounds incredible, but this YouTuber did not stop there and made a mechanism called end cannon. The principle of operation is similar to the previous mechanism, but here 102,400 TNT are simultaneously detonated, which allowed the pearl to accelerate up to 1,760,000 meters per second. If all this is transferred to the ordinary world, then the speed will already be 10,990,090 meters per second. These are incredible indicators. To get to the end of the world as quickly as possible, of course, not taking into account the time of travel between worlds. To create this mechanism, the author spent many weeks searching for the perfect rebound, which ensures an accuracy of 6 decimal places, thanks to which the pearl flies horizontally, rather than shooting into the sky. Given the extreme power it receives from 100,400 TNT, these are incredible geniuses who play Minecraft and do calculations at the level of a PhD thesis. I tried to start this mechanism, but after 7 hours of computer work, nothing happened because Minecraft runs on Java and processes data too completely. Already after that, I saw the author's recommendations for starting the mechanism, but did not dare to do it a second time. The last 2 mechanisms are very cool, but they were created for version 1.12.2 and use the features and bugs of that version. So this mechanism will no longer work on the latest version of Minecraft. I think that if someone wants to update these mechanisms, I will leave a link to them in the description under the video. So we found out what are the fastest ways to move. But I would probably choose the piston blot because it is enough to press one button to get there automatically, and also this mechanism has all the variations of movement both up and down, at least diagonally. There is even a mechanism that automates the process construction of this mode of transportation. Before I find out the slowest way to move, I would be glad if you support the new video format like, thank you. Now is the time to learn the slowest way of transportation. Normal walking, as we already know, is 4.3 meters per second. Riding a strider on the bench, the speed will be approximately 4.1 meters per second. Swimming sideways is already 4 meters per second, and directly 3.9 meters per second. Running sideways on soul sand 3.3 meters per second, and straight 3.2 meters per second. Rides on a strider with an acceleration in blocks of almost 3 meters per second. Walking on soul sand 2.5 meters per second. Horses on a pig without an acceleration of 2.4 meters per second. Boat in blocks 2 meters per second. Walking underwater sideways is also 2 meters per second and straight 1.9 meters per second. Rides on a strider 1.7 meters per second. On a trolley on rails 1.5 meters per second. Horses on a pig on soul sand 1.431 meters per second. Sneak 1,295 meters per second. Sneak sideways on soul sand 1.064 meters per second. Boat on soul sand 1.053 meters per second. Strider on soul sand 1.030 meters per second. Then, without announcing the speed, it will be on the screen. Walking with a taut bow. Walking in lava. Sneak on soul sand. Walking with a drawn bow on soul sand. Walking in lava on soul sand. Sneak in powder snow. Boat on soul sand and cobweb. Walking with a drawn bow in powder snow. Walking with a taut bow in the bench. Sneak in cobweb. Sneak with a drawn bow on soul sand. Sneak in the soul sand lava. Walking with a bow drawn in cobweb. Lava walking on soul sand and cobweb. Sneak with a drawn bow in powder snow. Sneak with a drawn bow in the cobweb. Sneak in soul sand lava in cobweb. Sneak with a drawn bow in the bench. Sneak with a drawn bow on soul sand and powder snow and in cobweb. And the slowest way to move is this. Sneak with a drawn bow in the bench on soul sand and in cobweb. The speed will be 0, that is, I do not move, I just stand still. When searching for material for the video, I found shorts from different YouTubers, and they copied each other's videos and talked about the method. Sneak with a drawn bow on soul sand and powder snow and in cobweb under potion of the Turtle Master 6, but here it will be enough fourthly, so that the speed was 0, they could even ventilate the carrion. In this video, you probably saw only 45% of all types of movement. I couldn't even imagine that there are so many of them. Sneak, walking, running, all kinds of enchantments in the most different variations, all this to do sideways, and also at speed 1 and 2 on different surfaces, and so on. I will leave a more detailed table on Buy Me a Coffee. If you like the new section, share the video with a friend, subscribe to the channel, and leave your unforgettable comment. Turtlecraft was with you until the next meetings.